I was 3 years old when this card first came out in the OCG. Damn, time flies so fast. Soul Release is a very simple normal spell card that just reads target up to 5 cards in any graveyards, banish them. A lot of relevant things are implied in this effect, even though it's just 10 words long. First of all, it targets up to 5 cards in any graveyard and not exactly 5 cards, so if you don't want to banish the full 5 cards, well, you don't have to commit to that. And of course, it banishes from either player's graveyard, which means your own graveyard, which is actually pretty interesting if you're playing Thunder Dragon. I mean, imagine Soul Release and Thunder Dragon with Batteryman Solar as we are speaking right now. It's already a good 2-card combo, but if we get 2 Colossus back, then it's actually gonna be a 2-card OTK, because you're going to be able to summon double Colossus and then make Anaconda to Titan and go for game that way. I guess you also could be banishing your own Shiranui Spirit Master if you're playing a zombie-based strategy with Solitaire and trigger your effects of the Shiranui monsters, or banish the cards from your graveyard so you have a lesser graveyard count with Dimension Shifter, and if you're banishing this the same turn you use the D-Shifter, you're going to have 0 cards in the graveyard, because obviously D-Shifter was the only card that hit the graveyard, which means that the next turn you're going to be able to use D-Shifter again. But of course, the main reason I wanted to talk about Soul Release was because of the fact that Destiny Hero Destroy Phoenix Enforcer entered the meta, and this card, Soul Release, is extremely good against it. So once Destiny Hero Destroy Phoenix Enforcer hits the graveyard, you can use Soul Release to banish it, but also the Celestial on top of that, which makes it so your opponent doesn't get the insane recursion that is Enforcer, which is going to be another pop every single turn, so obviously you want to DD Crow that card as early as possible, but also the Celestial is a free draw too as well. So with just one single spell card, you were able to kind of do a 2-in-1. Cool thing about this card is that you still have 3 other cards that you can banish. So if you're playing against a deck that actually uses Destiny Hero Destroy Phoenix Enforcer as a package in a deck that actually already has relevant cards in the graveyard, well, you're going to be a huge winner. I can think a lot of cards and a lot of decks that seriously would not appreciate getting hit by Soul Release, and a really good example would be, for example, Brandish Sky Striker Destroy Phoenix Enforcer. If you can banish the Enforcer, Celestial, Ray, Engage, Widow Anchor, whatever from the graveyard, almost game ending on its own, and also against Salamandrade, banishing the Spinny, Jaguar, Gazelle, and the Trap cards. That's also absolutely huge. Against Eldritch, you can banish the Conquistador, Haquero, Scarlet Sanguine, Eldritch, the Golden Lord. Against Drytron, you banish every single monster, but also the Ritual spell, Ben 10, Herald of Perfection or Ultimateness, etc. Against Ogdoadic, of course, when your opponent goes Snake Rain, he's still going to have a lot of resources in the graveyard, but if you go for Soul Release, well, it pretty much obliterates the full foolish effect of the Snake Rain. So in other words, both players kind of went even with each other on a really good 1-for-1 trade, whereas a card like Call by the Grave or DD Crow wouldn't have really done too much here. And of course, against Phantom Knight, Orchist, etc., a card like Soul Release is extremely nice. And it's not once per turn, so if you draw multiple copies of Soul Release, you can banish up to, what, 15 cards from your opponent's graveyard. So if your opponent resolved that grass looks greener and milled 15 Infernoids, well, oh, triple Soul Release, banish all those 15 Infernoids, and all of a sudden you lose the game. Merry Christmas. Of course, if Soul Release was a quick play spell card, the card would have been ban-worthy, tier negative 10 billion, unfair, whatever. But hey, I mean, we can't really power creep Called by the Grave that much, so Soul Release really had to be a normal spell card, unfortunately. But my point is, even as a normal spell card, the card is still good enough to be at least considered. And remember the fact that this is like a 20-ish something year old card. So for a card that is that old, it's actually really interesting to see that some of these old cards can still be playable and be really good right now. And of course, the card is worth absolutely nothing, so it's not like you really had to ruin your bank account. If you're an old player like me who's been playing since like 2002, you probably have like tens or hundreds of copies of Soul Release sitting there in your bulk, whatever, so you don't really have to worry about that at all. But that's pretty much all I had to say for this Soul Release card review. If you guys have any comments or feedback, let me know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.